All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Kraven the Hunter sucks. I mean, that's something we all know, and it
breaking news.
Breaking news.
I love
shocking discovery.
I love when you talk Kraven to me.
And boy, did it flop. As a matter of fact, one of the stars of the film, Alessandro Nivola, who played Rhino in it, he's also in Brutalist, by the way. But he saw a headline. He quoted a headline online that said, Brutalist out-earns Kraven the Hunter despite having almost 1,000 fewer theaters. So what the guy who played Rhino wrote on social media, should I quit, celebrate, or eat a gummy and chill?
C.
It's always C, buddy.
It's always C. Always C. But with that going around today about him talking about it, and Ricky Tiki Taki put out some comments about it as well, it brought up the question again. I had a few people write into me late last night about this. Now that the dust has kind of settled a little bit on what was an undeniable massive flop of Kraven the Hunter. Now that the dust has settled, and I believe it's out on VOD now, what does Sony do? What should Sony do with this property that has given us such cinematic classics as Madam Web,
Yes,
Morbius, and of course, Kraven the Hunter?
They made a Madam Web movie?
can you believe it?
I missed that bit so much.
It didn't turn out that well.
Oh.
Yeah, it turns out they maybe shouldn't have.
You've been busy. We talked about it a little bit.
Maybe they should not have made it. But it brings up the question, what should they do? Because this is, whenever the topic of Sony now comes up online, that you will instantly see a debate about that breakout. Sony needs to buy back Spider-Man. Sony needs to sell Spider-Man. Sony needs to quit. Sony needs to double down. Like, you'll just see this massive debate and argument break out about what Sony should be doing at this point.
Burnable DVDs.
Yeah, go back to making burnable DVDs. Don't stop. So it does raise the issue, though, right? Right now, they still have Beyond the Spider-Verse coming. And then they are going to make more. I remember there was that fake report that was going around that Sony decides to stop making things. No, they're not. That got debunked. They are going to make more, but they're just taking a bit of a breath right now as they kind of decide what direction to chart. Now, the way I see it, and maybe you guys can tell me what the other options are, there's a few things that they could do with it. There's certainly a popular opinion out there that they should give Spider-Man back to Marvel. Of course, nobody would do that. Nobody in their right mind, if they had the Spider-Man IP, would give it back to Marvel. And the price tag they'd want to sell it back for is a price tag probably that Marvel wouldn't be willing to pay. But we brought this up a little over a month ago, and I think we need to bring it up again. Before we start talking about what Sony should do with their whole Spider-Verse thing, there is a fact we all have to understand. Despite the perception, Sony's Spider-Verse films, starting from Venom to now, overall, have made them a lot of money. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it does. If we look at this chart, the total revenue, when you add up the films, now this is not taking Kraven into account, but we'll get to that in a second. When you take into account Venoms 1, 2, and 3, Into the Spider-Verse, Beyond the Spider-Verse, Madam Web, and Morbius, the 7 films, the total box office that those films combined have made is $3.18 billion. Their net revenue, after movie theaters keep their cut and everything, is $2.13 billion. The total production cost of all those movies was $711 million. Look, say what you want about Sony. One of the things that they do better than most other studios is they make their movies with reasonable budgets. So they never go crazy with their budgeting, at least not in these films. They've on average spent about $75 million per film, which comes out to about $525 million in marketing, which leaves them with a total profit of nearly $900 million of profit. And I know when you think of Madam Web and Morbius and Kraven, it's hard to imagine that they've been profitable with their overall Spider-Man enterprise. And we're not even talking about the Andrew Garfield movies or the Tobey Maguire movies. We're just talking about since Venom. Now, let's say they lost about $125 million with Kraven. Okay, they lost $125 million. That would still leave their profits at well over $700 million in profit. So, before rushing to say Sony should just get rid of the Spider-Man stuff, don't forget they've made ridiculous bank. Oh, and also don't forget that they've made even more money when you take into consideration their arrangement with Marvel for Marvel to produce Spider-Man in the MCU, and they get to be the distributors and collect hefty checks from it. They're making money hand over fist with the Spider-Man stuff. They're not necessarily making the great stuff, but they're making a ton of money. So here's where I'm at, and it's not a good option. Then I want to hear what you guys think they should do. All right. Number one, you don't change anything. If I'm Sony, as far as business arrangements go, I don't change anything. The business arrangement, if I'm the head of Sony right now that I've got with Marvel, is ridiculously profitable. We're making money, and we don't even have to make good movies to do it. So I'm thinking I don't change anything. Why? But what I also do is I hire a Spider-Verse czar. This is what everybody says now, but I hire a Kevin Feige. I know that's the cliche thing to say, but I really mean it. Get in somebody to be the overall direction setter for the Spider-Verse stuff, whether it's in the Madam Web kind of realm, whether it's in the animated Beyond the Spider-Verse realm, or whether it's, whatever you want to do with it. Get somebody in that you trust to kind of oversee that, and just put a little bit more damn effort. Because you know what the great thing about the movie business is? Doesn't matter how bad your last movie was, you can still make a good one next. You still can. And because if you're making money now, making some crappy movies, can you imagine the money you'll be making if you made them good? It's crazy. Rob, my solution isn't exciting. It's keep everything the same. Just bring in somebody to oversee Spider-Verse and put more effort in making better films. I don't know. If you're the head of Sony right now, what do you do with the Spider-Verse? Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Kikoff. January always feels like recovery mode, doesn't it? I mean, after all the holiday fun and, let's be honest, all the holiday spending, it can feel like a credit hangover. But don't worry, I've got the perfect solution to help you bounce back in 2025. Kikoff, the #1 credit building app in the App Store. Kikoff is a total game changer if you're looking to start building or improving your credit. Their plans? They start at just $5 a month. No credit check, no hidden fees, and no interest. Everybody's been there, guys. Trying to navigate credit can feel like a maze, but Kikoff makes it easy. You can sign up in minutes on your phone and be instantly set up with a credit line designed specifically for building credit, not for spending. And here's a fun fact. If your credit's under 600, you could jump around 28 points in your first month. It's that simple. Shake off the credit hangover and look forward to brighter credit with Kikoff. Get your first month for just $1 at getkikoff.com/Campea today. That's getkikoff, KIKOFF.com/Campea. Must sign up via kikoff.com/Campea to activate offer. Offer applies to new customers first month only. Subject to approval. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions may apply. Points based on Equifax VantageScore 3.0 changes for Kikoff users starting under 600 who made their first on-time payment between January 2021 and March 2024. Payment and credit activity outside of Kikoff can have an impact on your credit. Individual results may vary.
There's one thing that people keep forgetting, that Nicolas Cage is starring as Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah, Spider-Man Noir is
Yeah,
coming
but
out.
that's on Amazon.
Right, but okay,
It's still Sony produced.
So here's what
Right.
I think they should do. The Snyderverse, Snyder, they got to get Zack Snyder. Give it to him.
Are you?
Let him
kidding.
go to Netflix. He's already got a
I was
deal
gonna
with
say
them.
that, but I was gonna
They're
be
already
joking.
doing Spider-Man Noir. Just give Zack Snyder a chance to go to Marvel and show us what he can do. After the great success of Army of the Dead, the 4 Rebel Moon movies. Come on now.
That's right. There are 4. I forgot about that.
He's just going to build off Spider-Man Noir. He's already got a deal with Netflix, and he just comes right in, and I don't have to listen to half of my Twitter feed yell and scream anymore.
If I walked into a Sony boardroom with
by
you
the
and
way,
you were like,
that's sarcastic.
Dude, let me do the talking, I've got this, and you started saying that, I don't know if I would have ever spoken to you again.
No, but look, in all seriousness, I think you got to do what the Cylons do. You have a plan, and everybody needs a plan. And I think that what's interesting about these interlocking, the Morbius, Madam Web, and Kraven, didn't really interlock.
Oh, at all.
You
No.
know, and that was odd to me because they're all supposed to be taking place in the same universe. But without a focal point, you have Spider-Man villains that aren't like the Kingpin is obsessed with Daredevil. Kingpin's also been a Spider-Man villain. But you know that when you have Kingpin, there's a reason why the two of these characters are spinning around in each other's orbits. With these spider villain films, they never came up with a unifying thrust that kind of made so if you saw one, you'd need to see the other. And I always thought that was odd. They always talk about, well, we're going to do the Sinister Six and we're going to have all these different, but none of them had there was no reason other than, I mean, look, the Venom movies are fun.
I like the Venom movies. Yeah,
the
I
same
like
way
those.
I like Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. You know, they were fun movies. They're kind of brain dead, but they're fun. And I liked watching. Everybody who was making those movies had fun. But the Spider-Verse movies, they weren't fun. There was nothing about them. I wanted to like them. I wanted them to be fun. I wanted them to be engaging. But it felt, again, like there was no plan. Like, who decided to make a Madam Web movie? All jokes aside. In the Spider-Man pantheon of villains or characters, why that one? Who said, I've got an idea. We're going to make this movie.
Because the
Do
Aunt
you
May
remember, though-
idea was taken.
Yeah. Do you remember, though, that it was about a year before the movie came out? A report came out that was totally wrong and totally false. But we batted around. This report came out that said what the movie might have been about, because we remember Madam Web takes place like 25 years in the past.
Right.
And like the idea was that there was a Spider-Man villain. It was going to kind of have a Terminator plot line where a Spider-Man villain goes back in time to try to kill Mary Parker to stop the birth of Spider-Man,
Right.
remember? And we were all like, I have no idea why they're making a Madam Web movie, but that could be good. They still could have made a good movie.
Yeah.
But instead we got Madam Web.
By the way, I would say this. I would say that Jonathan Hickman's recent run on Ultimate Spider-Man, where the future is changed, that
Yeah.
storyline is dope.
It's awesome. It's
and they
really
could have
good.
Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire play that role, and it would work great. And I'm like, green light that.
I don't think they can make live action Spider-Man.
I know, but
with
they
the-
should. I mean, that would be because it's a multiverse movie. That's what I've never understood. They could have made their own multiverse movie. They did a little bit of that. Venom tied in a little bit to the
Yeah.
MCU. They could have done that Hickman run and made a multiverse Spider-Man movie that tied into the MCU. That would have been if somebody had a plan.
I don't know. I don't know that Marvel would have agreed to it though. That's because
They
I don't
might
think-
not have, but it would have allowed Spider-Man to exist in a pocket part of the Spider Universe over at Sony that I think would only have bolstered their brand because Marvel cannot be happy with 3 crappy.
No, and, you know,
movies.
I don't think Marvel's happy with it. I don't think DC's happy with it because, again, a lot of the general movie-going audience, Chris, we've talked about this a lot, is the fact that they just see comic book movies. They don't see the brand. They don't see the Sony brand. They don't see, a lot of them don't see the Marvel brand. They just there are 3 really crappy comic book movies. And I guarantee you neither Kevin Feige or James Gunn are happy about that because it ultimately will hurt them as well.
Yeah.
So, Chris, let's put it over to you. You are now the head of Sony.
Oh, good.
And you are now faced with this scenario. What do you do with your Spider-Verse at this point?
I mean, I think you guys have put it quite well. Rob's jokes aside, of you stay the course, but we're going to add a little fun flavor here. We're going to do something called trying.
It's this old school concept.
Pretty neat.
Old school idea.
I know. It's very try hard to try, but we're going to do it. And I know that sounds very flippant, and it's very difficult to make a movie. We talk about this all the time. Making a good movie is really hard.
It's
Making a
hard,
good
yeah.
piece of art is hard. Making a commercial success is hard. However, it feels like, especially since we've had so many people from Sony go, no, they're not bad movies. You guys didn't appreciate it. Let's maybe work on making a product that is actually great. And when we get feedback, when we have our customers, because we're in the movie making business, we're going to treat it like a business. We have our customers say, hey, these movies aren't good. Don't say, yes, they are, and try to gaslight us. Instead, go, hey, heard that feedback? This is what we're going to do in the future. We're going to streamline some of these things. We are going to make less of these movies. All the things they already say they are going to be doing, making less films, focusing on the quality instead of the quantity. These are all great things so that they can buckle down, work with incredible writers, work with the amazing IP they have at their hands so that they can make a better product. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to not be the poodoo they keep putting out.
Do you,
Yeah. Go ahead,
I was just going to
Jonathan.
say, going off of that, does that mean you are just changing course of the ship, so you're just improving the quality, or is that like what WB did with DC, where it's a complete reboot? So you're changing ships.
But do they even have to reboot anything? Like Rob
I
was
know.
pointing out, right? Madam Web never
not as
tied into
cinematic, you're
Morbius.
right.
Yeah.
Morbius never tied into Kraven, right? So do you
not
even have to
unified.
reboot? Look. Somebody said in the live chat, "Listen to the fans." No, that's always that's number one. That's always a mistake. And number
Rob's
two,
idea of Zack Snyder.
I always laugh when somebody says, "Listen to the fans," because that pretends like the fans are all speaking in one unified voice.
They're not.
There's like 1,000 different messages coming from the fans and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if they could like focus on just making, look, one of our viewers, Experimental Films 123, put in the chat there. It says step one: stop hiring the Morbius and Madam Web writers. That's a good start.
Yeah, that'd be good. I can't
That's a
find
pretty
his,
good start. Stop doing that.
I
That'd be
want to
pretty
believe
cool.
everyone's capable of great change, but yes.
You know what I've been doing over the last couple of days as a sort of a therapeutic exercise? I've been typing into Chat GPT to write me a better story than Section 31's plot. And every single time it comes out with something brilliant. And I'm like, the world can be a better place. It can be a better place.
ChatGPT is giving you something brilliant.
Chat
Giving you
GPT
something brilliant.
Well, it's taking it from somebody else.
It
Remember.
might not be brilliant,
Okay.
but it's a lot better than what we got.
Well, now haven't you been keeping up with the news, Rob? Don't use ChatGPT. Go use DeepSeek.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the
well,
thing.
yeah.
Don't
I
forget.
haven't-
Go find that.
But I haven't. That's just because it's not on my browser history yet.
One thing's for sure though, they have to change because
What is
even
in your browser history?
I have nothing on my browser history I wouldn't be happy to share. There's a lot of videos of Japanese space models being.
I don't want. Okay, I was gonna say I don't want you to
Yeah,
finish
yeah,
that
yeah.
sentence.
No.
I'm so glad you did.
Like I watch every episode that Hachette puts out of the Partworks Space Battleship Yamato things, and there's hundreds of them now.
All right, Jonathan, what were you about to say?
just that, yes, they've made $897 million in profit spread over 7 years. It's been boom and bust. If you average it out, it's still 128 million a year, but it's not sustainable because their bread and butter is what is the Spider-Verse animation, which is going to come to an end. And then they're hanging on the phone waiting for Marvel to say, we want another Tom
Well, and their
Spider-Man."
Venom films
Yeah.
are done. Like really, they've made their real money with the Venom
so they
films.
can't move forward with these types of, they've got to make a change.
Yeah, they have to make a pivot at some point. And you're right. The Sony CEO coming out and saying, "No, our movies are actually good." Look, you're never going to convince me. You're never going to convince me that a group of movie studio executives sat down and watched an early cut of Madam Web and said, "Yes, our customers are going to love this." Or sat down and watched an early cut of Morbius and said, "Yes, now we're on to something." They all knew. And they were just like, whatever we lose, Venom, Spider-Verse, and our movies we're making with Marvel are going to make up for it.
By the way, this is something totally unrelated. Have you seen the trailer? You know how Sony PlayStation, we had Uncharted come out from them. They're going to do God of War. They have a movie coming out, a horror film that's based on.
Oh yeah, we've talked about it.
Have you talked about it?
Oh, yeah. Until Dawn?
Until Dawn.
Get those people to make a.
No, we haven't
Spider-Verse.
seen the movie yet.
But it
Let's see if the movie's
that
any
trailer
good.
looks dope. I mean, come on, they got Wendigos in that. That if they space in the game, I was thinking when I watched that, I'm like, if they've got those people that can make a low budget movie that looks like that, admittedly,
Well,
haven't seen it, get them to take a shot,
The
a great
director
game.
also made Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods,
which I liked.
which I actually didn't mind either, but everybody else hated.
Yeah, but if
That's
you give
fun.
him, give him $200 million, give him $6 million, and see what he does. Make a low budget Spider-Man movie that maybe is good, and have Chat GPT write it.
All right, guys, the question is for you.
Gone to the dark side.
What do you think about this? And don't give me this brain dead. Just give it back to Marvel. No, that would be idiotic. If you were actually the head of Sony, what would you do? Like, hey, listen, sure, somebody can say, sell it back to Marvel for $10 billion. Okay, Marvel's not going to pay $10 billion. Marvel's not going to pay what it's worth because they don't need to because they're still making the Spider-Man movies and making money from them anyway. So how would you approach it if you were the head of Sony? There's probably a lot of options we haven't considered yet. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.